Game 5, 114-108 win over Milwaukee. Kawhi Leonard is expected to miss Game 5 against the Jazz tonight with a knee injury. The Atlanta Hawks travel to Philly to face off against the 76ers at 6:30 p.m. tonight on TNT, with the series tied at 2 games apiece. In other NBA news, Phoenix guard Chris Paul is out indefinitely and has been placed in the NBA's COVID-19 health and safety protocols. Last night in Major League Baseball, the Tigers beat the Royals 4-3 at the K. The New York Mets topped the Cubs 3-2 at home. The Yankees beat Toronto 6-5 on the road, and the Dodgers beat Philadelphia at home 5-3. For our latest sports news and updates, keep it tuned right here to 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
And here we go.
You're in the recruiting hour on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
You're the 2 o'clock.
Yes, I am.
Here are your hosts, Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Brought to you by Bubbles and Blocks.
Welcome into the recruiting hour. I am Mike Schaefer, joined by Connor Happer. I am in my parents' office in Columbus. This is the peak, the pinnacle, the best my radio career will ever get. We are also streaming, which you can catch on Facebook, Twitch, and
YouTube.
Happer, help me out here. There you go. If you want to see what I would look like if they had to blur me out as a witness for a really heinous crime, and they're just putting me in a hotel room, and then they're just darkening every feature behind me. That's what it looks like today as we have the recruiting hour here on Wednesday. Happer, how's it going?
It's going well. You look fine. You look normal. My the studio light in here is significantly brighter than it is in your parents' house, but we'll work with that.
Yeah, we got to get them on. We got to get them on the daylight lighting, and
if we both just evened out somehow, I think that'd be a lot better.
Yeah, I'm just excited that we're able to make this happen because we decided this is what we were going to try to do, and I'm sitting here looking at all of these pictures of my parents' grandkids as I am, and look, what better sponsor could we have than Bubbles and Blocks? Where else would you rather send your kids? But this will be a unique recruiting hour experience. But it did allow me to attend the Big Red Blitz. It allowed me to watch Ernest Hausman as he had practice today in a passing league here in Columbus, and so it was nice with the flexibility of technology to be able to do these things and still keep people informed about recruiting in Nebraska football.
Who would have thunk radio, man? You could do radio from anywhere on earth. Over the last couple of weeks, I've done radio from a hotel room in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Schaefer from his parents' house in Columbus, and who knows what'll be next? We have no idea.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where's the strange with that the Fayetteville hotel? Is that the top of the list for you now?
For me, yeah, for me, I did some shows from home, a year ago, but that was not that abnormal considering the circumstances. So yeah, I think the hotel in Fayetteville is probably the weirdest one.
Yeah, we've already got a comment coming in that I should be streaming from the Pawnee Plunge. Trust me, if we had really thought about this and put it together more, we could have been doing the show from the Pawnee Plunge. It would have been absolutely perfect today. I talked to the people in Columbus that make it happen, that the Pawnee Plunge advertises on the ticket, and they very much want us to come down. So that is something
we got to make
we're
it
hoping
happen.
to do.
Yeah,
here in Columbus. I guess with that, we should just dive into the opening splash, right?
Oh, very
loud.
loud.
To be there, and you were on the ball.
Extremely loud opening splash. That was my
That
fault.
was really good. Can we get that again?
Yes, of course we can. Should I turn it down at all, or should we just make it cannonball again?
I like the cannonball.
All right.
The opening splash, of course, brought to you by our friends at the Pawnee Plunge, the #1 water park in America. Mike Sauter expressed doubt, some surprise. I think yesterday I said the state. Today it's America. Tomorrow it'll be, the entire galaxy. It really just depends on the mood and the feeling I have going into it. But the Pawnee Plunge would have been terrific to spend time at. They should have done the Big Red Blitz at the Pawnee Plunge. Mario Verduzco should have been giving his speech and then going down a giant water slide. Eric Chenander could have been talking about the safety dads while riding the Flow Rider. Amy Williams could have been on the lazy river. I mean, it would have been way better
Yeah,
but
missed
it was-
opportunity for sure.
It was a good event, as it was. It was a good event. Nebraska really wants to get out and see people, and I this is a big initiative of Bill Moose's. There's no doubt about it. And the first thing that each of these people, and so I was here in Columbus. The speakers, as I mentioned, basketball coach Amy Williams, quarterbacks coach Mario Verduzco, defensive coordinator Eric Shenander, and then Jeff Greesh, who works with women's basketball as their SID, and then I think he's very involved with the athletic department in a variety of roles. I mean, they all went to great lengths to sort of explain like a lot of this today, and there's coaches all throughout the state. I mean, you have stops in David City, Broken Bow, Chadron, North Platte, Kearney, Grand Island, West Point. Trying to think if there's a couple that Norfolk. There's probably a few that I've missed somewhere in there, but you're trying to canvass the state because I think that they want to make people feel like, especially after this last year, this is still your team. This is still your program. We want you guys to come visit us, but first we're going to come visit you. And that was really the message from right off the bat from Amy Williams, from Eric Shenander. I mean, they both talked a lot about the difficulty of you go from the environments that they have at Pinnacle Bank Arena to just having to get through a season in which you don't have the fans there. You're not able to feed off the crowd. And I think that we kind of got used to it. But at the same time, there's no doubt that Nebraska athletics are ready to have you, the people, back in their venues.
Yeah, we missed
No
that.
question.
There's no doubt about it. Both from the fans' perspective and from the team's perspective, obviously. Like, it's just, I mean, it's a great thing, and I know they're probably going to do it every year anyway. They've done it in the past before the pandemic, but it's about getting people connected again and making them feel like they're part of it. And for that reason, it's a good thing. I sense from some of the other tweets and things that I've seen around today that the coaches really enjoy that piece of it too, because they've been able to do what was such a huge part of their jobs from over the last couple of years. This is kind of like a grand reopening type of thing. It feels like it's kind of cool.
Yeah, you really haven't lived until you've walked into Frankfurt Square in downtown Columbus and Mario Verduzco sitting there on a park bench smoking a stogie and welcoming you to your own hometown. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
Bet you didn't think you'd see that in your life.
No, I really didn't. I did not. It's not quite, like I said, the mental imagery of him going down a water slide after talking about the quarterback situation.
We can make that happen, though.
But, maybe Mario would join us at the Pawnee Plunge. No promises, though. But it was, like I said, it was good. I'll dive into the football here in a little bit, but I actually kind of want to start it talking about women's basketball for a couple minutes here. And I know that you, Connor Happer, for those that aren't aware, he is the voice of Pinnacle Bank Arena when the women's team play. And so he has a front row seat, literal front row seat to the action. And I don't know that we give Amy Williams enough credit for kind of keeping her program as competitive as it was last year, given how depleted they were. I mean, she was talking about it, and I don't, I was sitting in the studio watching those midday games of you sometimes. I had no idea they basically ran 7 deep.
Yep.
And of that 7, a couple were walk-ons. So, they were pretty competitive last year, and she's done a really nice job. I think she kind of gets forgotten in the mix of some of these coaches since there's been so much coaching change at Nebraska, save for really John Cook and then some of your Olympic sports. You've seen a lot of the other ones kind of shift in and shift out, and she's done a really nice job there. And they have a team that it feels like there's a lot of reason for optimism right now. Certainly you have a great player coming in Alexis Markowski, right from Lincoln Pius. And there's a lot of excitement about her. There's the girl from Lindsay Holy family.
Allison Widener.
Yep. And she is, which isn't far from Columbus here. And Jeff Greich was talking about just how rare it is to find someone of her caliber in this part of Nebraska. And so there's a lot of excitement about that program. And I was just thinking, we've talked a lot about Will Bolt. We've talked a lot about Fred Hoiberg and those guys. And she's been here a little longer, but she's dealt with no less adversity and has had a fair amount of success given some of the setbacks.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. Last year, I mean, I remember seeing him for the first couple games, getting to go to a scrimmage or two beforehand, and it was like, yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of see about this group. It might be tough for them this year. And they rattled off a few wins early. They caught some momentum. And then they had a couple girls go down on top of that. And I was like, well, I don't know if this is going to be a very good team anyway. And they were able to stay competitive to the point of, we were really talking about NCAA tournament up until the last couple weeks for them last year. So that was cool to see. That's a group that, I mean, you're right, Schaefer. We talk about Will Bolt and the team taking on his mentality a lot. I mean, it's definitely been that way for Amy Williams too. Back against the wall, gritty, that type of thing. And now you bring that whole team back basically from last year with the notable exception of Kate Kane. And then you add a couple transfers, a couple people getting healthy, and a great freshman class that you're bringing in as well. I think they should. In studio, we were just looking at their roster the other day. It's like, well, this team should be pretty good coming up this year if stuff goes right for them. They'll be deep and all that stuff too. I'm super excited about that, and I can't say enough about the coaching staff. They're great people, and they get the they know what they're doing out there. So I'm excited about that.
She was really good in that environment. I mean, obviously, she was going around and meeting everybody she could, and just seems like a really fun individual. And so, like I said, before we dove directly into the football, because Eric Shenander had some pretty interesting stuff to say, and same with Mario Verduzco, and I definitely want to touch on that in today's show. We don't have a guest, but once when we come back from the first segment, we're certainly going to be diving into. I saw Ernest Hausman a little bit today, and we'll get into some of the official visitors that are slated to come in later this week, and maybe even touch on some of the recruiting comments that both coaches, Mario Verduzco and Eric Shenander, had to say today. But it was really one, I forgot how much I love informal interviews. Like the spring, it was great because you were able to get over there and you got to see them in person, but it's still kind of the backdrops behind you. It's still a little bit buttoned up. You're over there. I mean, here it was very relaxed, Eric Shenander, and between myself and, I think Derek Peterson from Hale Varsity was there, Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald, and a couple other outlets, Brett Wagner from Lincoln Journal-Star. I mean, he really relaxed, and Eric Shenander likes his defense a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And I know that that's not groundbreaking, but some of the stuff that, you and I have talked about, Happer, that basically has him feeling great is that he has two guys that I think he sort of told the crowd today, they pace the defense. And I don't know if this is who people would necessarily expect.
Yeah, who's that?
Deontay Williams and Markel Dismuke have set kind of the tone for the rest of the defense this year. And, our beloved safety dads are the fathers of the team.
I'm telling you, man, we're just waiting for the jorts and, get them with a lawnmower or something like that. Like, that would just be fantastic. Like, they're out on the back deck grilling. Like, Markel turns around. He's like, what do you guys want? Chicken or steak or burger or brat. So I'm just saying, free marketing opportunity there for Nebraska.
If we ever see either of them showing up in all white New Balance shoes, it's over. It is 100% over.
Incredible.
Yeah. But no, and so he talked about those guys, and basically what he said is that they have sort of they've kind of taken on and embraced this role of, like, they're in their super senior year. They don't have to be back, but they chose to be back. And that was kind of the message that they imparted on some of the younger guys, which was basically like, we came back because we think we can do something. And we came back because we want to do something. And in order to do that, we have to up our level. And that's coming off of obviously a pretty good year in 2020. But as everybody knows, there's always room for improvement. And he was talking about how during the spring, he's trying to get reps for Noah Pola-Gates and for Miles Farmer and for Isaac Gifford and for, some of these guys. And he'd be sending people in, and they'd be running onto the field, and Deontay Williams would be kicking them off because they want as many reps and as much time as they can. And he just said that the people are just feeding off of it. And he said he really feels like an energy there that, you know, they felt like they were growing something last year as the season was going along. And now he kind of feels like because they have so much of this group back and led sort of by those two guys, that there is there's just a really strong sort of growth happening. And then he's pointing out at the fact that he also loves that, you know, but beyond that, you've got those guys working with Miles Farmer and Nola Pola Gates, and they're learning at an earlier age than maybe Deontay and Markel were able to, what it takes, all the extra effort you have to put in before you ever have a super senior year if you want this thing to go in the right direction. And he thinks that kind of fostering of that mentality is going to be really helpful for those 2020s and 2021 guys.
Well, and even for, and I think so too, but even for that top unit, the top defense, like they kind of had been building, like you said, last year. I mean, defense is such all things in football, really. It's such a connected deal. Like every strength that you have means that you can get stronger elsewhere. Every weakness that you have, you know, has a better chance of kind of getting exposed and stuff like that. And you could feel that the defense is just really connected. I mean, and it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of guys who've been playing for the entire Scott Frost era together back there, if not more. So, I think that makes a lot of sense, and those guys taking on a leadership role is awesome. And then you still have Cam Taylor-Britt, and you still have JoJo Domann. Those guys have been around for a long time, and they know what to do. They know where to go, and they could help other people in that defense figure that game out too, because that's what it's all about. Like you know, in recruiting, you know, we make it about plug and play with the stars and all that stuff, but it's just not that easy. You have to know what to do, where to go, how much work to put in, and all that stuff. There's just intricacies that you can't understand until you've learned it and you've been out there. So, those guys, the work that they've done, really the entire group that I just mentioned, that'll kind of carry on for a long time, I think.
Yeah, and one of the points that Shenander wanted to make is that something that Nebraska had to do with that changeover when this staff came in is that you had to get to the point where you aren't just rebuilding each subsequent year. And so they feel like they're in handoff mode at this point where you're going to lose Ben Stilley, and you're going to lose Will Honus, and you're going to lose the safeties, and you're going to lose JoJo Domann, but they're in so much better position now to hand those guys off going into 2022. And he went to great pains to kind of say this. He said, part of our job right now is to take a kid like a Blaise Gunnerson and make sure he knows that we're seeing his development. Make sure he knows that we like where this is going, because you don't want a kid to get discouraged that maybe the playing time isn't exactly where he wants it in his third year on a program, but it's coming. And that's kind of so they kind of have this duality where you're making sure that your starters and the guys that are getting the bulk of your reps are doing what you want, but you also have to positively reinforce the guys that are behind. And that's all in the advent of the transfer portal, because Nebraska has kind of felt that crush a little bit where they felt like they had some guys that just jumped in because they didn't see that there was a light coming. And they don't want that with some of these people that he ran through a list of younger players he's really excited about. Blaise Gunnerson was one of them. Mosai Newsome was, and these are guys that aren't likely to get major minutes or major reps this year. But Jamari Butler, they like these guys a lot. They just don't want them to run off, I guess is what he's saying.
Isn't that though an easier thing to swallow as a young guy if you're not getting playing time, if you're sitting behind guys who you respect first of all, and who you kind of know they've been around, they know what they're doing, so you kind of have an understanding. Okay, that's why I'm not out there, and that's the level I need to get to. Like, I think that part of it's really valuable. And some of the stuff that's happened before, maybe with the offense, is there was no kind of, order to it. It was guys getting plugged in. There's no waves. I think what's happening with the defense is it's created like waves of guys, and that is ideally how you want to do it. And it takes a while to get there, and it feels like the defense has achieved that part of it.
Does it surprise you? We'll play it this way. It's too open-ended. I don't want to. I make you guess a lot of stuff. This is way too open-ended. So basically he was asked about like who sort of not necessarily caught him by surprise, but when he went back and he looked over the spring, who kind of stood out. And the very first name, and partly because there's a connection there, but I do think that this is a guy that, and we did talk about him, this is a guy that's going to play a key role, is Chris Kolarovich. I mean, I think that he basically said, you know, looking back on it, like he showed up and we had heard he was going to be one thing, and he was that thing, but he was like three other things too.
Yeah.
And by the end of the winter workouts, he already had the respect of the guys on the defense. So it wasn't like anyone didn't know who he was or what he was capable of doing from a physical standpoint. And then he just sort of eased and comfortably fell into a pretty strong, productive role in the spring. And so Chris Kolarovich was the first name that he brought up there. And he basically is like, you know, I'm not promising he's going to be a starter, but that guy's going to be on the field, and he's going to be all over the field.
Well, it was enlightening to see him pop up in all the testing numbers.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the way that they talked about him, other guys on the defense talked about him during the spring. You kind of thought, all right, yeah, he's going to be a player in this defense. And it becomes even more significant with the loss of Will Honas. So, I mean, there you go. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And right at that same position, the guy that he said he thought had the best spring, or at least the final 3 weeks of it, he thought was playing the best football of anybody on the field, was Nick Henrich, which is some pretty high praise, certainly, of a veteran defense. But Nick Henrich was a absolute, you know, and this is a pun that I didn't really intend, but he was a bulldog as a linebacker for Omaha Burke, and he's just a great player on the field. And once he's healthy, he's going to prove to everyone why he was a top 100 player in the country, why, you know, he was viewed so favorably throughout the recruiting process, and why it was such a big win at the time when Nebraska got him. And so I think that's another guy that people know about, excited about, but there's maybe another level coming with Nick Henrich. And I think Eric Shenander kind of wanted to put that out there today when he was talking about that linebacker.
Well, he all of a sudden takes on a pretty important role, I think, in the defense, like I said, with the loss of Honas. And then you go back to Miller from last year, and they haven't exactly defined it. What's he going to be? Inside linebacker, outside linebacker? He's going to play a little bit of both. And I think that's fine. That's good. That's important. If he can go out there and just kind of make plays, but I think Reimer and Kolarovich will be there at the middle spot for the majority of the time, and Henrich will switch in. But his role gets more and more important because, I mean, after that, they're a little thin there. You know, it kind of drops off, I think, a little bit. So to have that guy who can do both if he's healthy, that's awesome. No, I mean, people have been excited about him for a long time, so I can't wait to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, jumping over to Mario Verduzco, obviously, a lot of it's centered around Adrian. He basically just threw it open to questions right away and didn't have much of an opening statement, and it didn't take long before turnovers came up, and he basically said that, you know, everyone knows the deal. Like, it's not like it's a well-kept secret. It's not like you're going to surprise anyone. And he basically, you know, he laid it out as Adrian has to weigh the risks of every decision he makes because they can't give things away. And he said too much of last year was giving stuff away. And he even talked about when they decided to bench Adrian, it was because of that interception against Northwestern. Mm-hmm. It was a throw that he felt that there was no reason to make, that there was other options that were more open, more available, more in front of him. And he just thought that it was Adrian trying to do too much, that there was too many numbers in front of him based on what they had seen at the end of last year and through that Northwestern, you know, just essentially 3 halves of football plus the third quarter against Northwestern. They just felt like he was in a position where he wasn't making good decisions. And they had a sit-down conversation with him, basically said, you know, this isn't, we don't want this to, we don't want you to come away with this thinking we don't like you. We don't want you to come away with this thinking we're, you know, mad at you. The reality of it is you're not giving us the best chance to win a football game right now. And here are the numbers why. And he said that Adrian kind of took that and obviously they had to make a similar switch again later in the season because they didn't get better from Luke McCaffrey necessarily. But he acknowledged that is still out there. Like they still haven't found the version of Adrian Martinez that's going to both be a playmaker while also managing the offense enough to not give away field position, to not give away possessions, to not give away the ball. And it's a tough task. I mean, I think there's some excitement about what Adrian has done in the offseason, but I think Mario Verduzco knows that it's a tightrope that he's going to have to walk. And once again, it's a supporting cast that he's, everyone's wearing a name tag for the most part.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I tend to think it's more about, obviously a lot of it is on the player's shoulders too, but I think a lot of it is about the positions that he's put in occasionally. And then I look at Adrian, and I don't think like gunslinger, guy who's going to try and force something in there. Because like he seems like the type of guy who would kind of let the game come to him, but that hasn't, for whatever reason. I
don't think he's had that opportunity. I think he's had to force action.
Yeah, his whether it's his heart rate going up too fast in the moment, or the Nebraska being behind the chains most of the time, which it feels like they are because they're just dying to get first downs and stay on the field and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a tough equation to solve, but that's the job for this year, and that obviously a lot rides on that.
Yeah, and then another interesting thing that came out of Verduzco is he kind of talked about Logan Smothers had a bit of a dip at the start of the spring where they felt like his vision in terms of seeing the field wasn't nearly as strong as it had been in the fall. That he was getting a little bit too tunnel vision because he had too much going on. In Mario Verduzco language, it had to do with the processing of information with the biomechanics of the position and a whole bunch of other, $11 words that I cannot exactly remember at this time. But he said that Smothers came out of the first couple weeks and played a lot better to finish the spring. And I know that these were conversations that we were kind of having early on where it seemed like, if Heinrich Harburg is already at Logan Smothers' level, that's not a great sign for Logan Smothers. But it does sound like from the staff, or at least from Mario Verduzco, the way that Smothers finished the spring was more in line with where the expectations for him were than early on when they kind of got a performance they didn't see coming. And part of that was he was having tunnel vision issues. Basically, he wasn't seeing things that he needed to be able to see. And so much of being a quarterback in this offense is getting that information, processing that information, and getting it out in a timely manner without, locking in too much on any one thing. And it seemed like that was kind of plaguing him early on. And it's something that he overcame. And they're very excited about all those quarterbacks, obviously. And you wouldn't expect him to say anything else. But I do think it was pretty genuine from Verduzco that, they were a little taken back at first. They figured out what it was. They worked with him on it, and he finished kind of with a flurry the last couple of weeks.
That's
so
good.
I think that's a good sign for that quarterback room.
Yeah, that's super interesting to hear. And that's not far off from, I guess, what we heard after spring was kind of wrapping up there. It's a good thing though, because everybody kind of sold their Logan Smothers stock, I think, at the beginning of spring, and there's still a lot of time for him to improve and get better, and then potentially be that guy one day or whatever he needs to, or be the backup quarterback this year. I still am super intrigued to see where that lands. It's obviously a huge deal. That's a good report though, because I don't know if people would have said that coming out of spring.
Yeah. I just I found that to be kind of one of the more interesting takeaways. Both of those guys had comments on recruiting in a pandemic, recruiting in the 500-mile radius. We'll touch on some of that. We'll touch on Nebraska's upcoming official visit. I saw Ernest Hausman work out today and run around, catch some passes, and I can report on that. So we'll have all of that and more. We'll keep you abreast with the information here on Big Red Blitz Day here as we finish things out on the Recruiting Hour.
You're listening to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Mike Schaefer here with 5-star child care provider Lee Beecher from Bubbles and Blocks. Let's start with what makes Bubbles and Blocks special.
We have 3 beautiful locations in Lincoln that provide the safety, security, and reliability you need while also bringing a family feel to each classroom at every location.
I also hear some congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Yes, we just won the Lincoln Choice Award for Best Daycare and Preschool for the 3rd year in a row.
What should people do if they want to join the Bubbles and Blocks family?
Call to set up a tour to enroll your child today, or you can visit bubblesandblocks.com to apply to join our team.
Don't you feel so free out here on the lake?
Not as free as this soda.
Where'd you get free soda?
Casey's. Buy 4 fountain drinks, 5th one's free.
I love free.
Bought this jerky, got this free donut too. And these chips could win me a free Lee Brice concert here in our town.
With Casey's Summer of Freedom sweepstakes, the more you buy, the more you can win, including a free Lee Brice concert for your town. Casey's, here for good. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. For official rules, visit Casey's.com.
Baseball's back, Lincoln, and that means Fireworks Fridays are too. Come out to Haymarket Park for Friday home games to celebrate the Lincoln Salt Dogs' 20th season with baseball, giveaways, and of course, post-game fireworks. We're glad to have you back in the stands. Watch us light up the sky for our celebration season. Get your tickets to the best night out in Lincoln at saltdogs.com.
At Madonna Therapy Plus, your health and safety is our first priority. Whether you're recovering from a minor sprain or a complex medical condition, our therapy experts can help relieve pain and increase mobility in an environment that adheres to enhanced safety guidelines. Therapy Plus is open in Omaha and Lincoln for comprehensive physical, speech, and occupational therapy, all with enhanced in-person safety plus new telehealth options. So don't let wellness wait. Learn more and schedule an appointment at therapyplus.madonna.org.
Hey guys, it's Happer. Join me and Robbie this Friday at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese for the drive from 3 to 6. Check out their huge variety of meats and take some home to grill for the weekend. That's Friday from 3 to 6 at the Mercado, just north of 84th and Havelock.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. And Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Summertime is here and the temperature is rising. Beat the heat at the Pawnee Plunge Water Park in Columbus all summer long. Pawnee Plunge features a full day of fun for the whole family, including the Flow Ride, the only one in Nebraska, a large swimming pool, diving boards, a lazy river, climbing wall, and of course, massive water slides. It's a great place for parties or a great spot to lounge around all day long. Book your party by calling 402-562-4269. Come splash and play the Pawnee Plunge Way in Columbus from May 31st through August 8th.
Beat the heat and save on a new cooling system from John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Combine new system rebates and LES incentives to save up to $2,500. Don't wait until your old system breaks down in the middle of summer. Take advantage of these great offers and beat the heat. Go to jhlincoln.com or give John Henry's a call today.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air.
If you're constantly tired or feel fatigued and lack motivation, you might be experiencing low T. At Vitalize Health, they can help treat low T and get you back on track. Rami and Jackie have focused their careers on whole body wellness and can help with everything from testosterone replacement to Botox to help the outside match the inside and regain your youthful appearance. Call Vitalize Health today at 402-413-0717 for more information or go online to vitalizehealthne.com.
Back to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer, presented by Bubbles and Blocks on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Hour. Mike Schaefer, Connor Happer here on 93.7 The Ticket. I am live from Columbus in my parents' house. It doesn't get much better than that. I tweeted out this earlier, but you can see a photo of me. I look like I am again a witness of a heinous crime, and I am being blurred out from
for your own protection.
For my own protection. So it is also unseasonably warm in the house, not just outside.
It is definitely unseasonable. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's unseasonably, but it's extremely hot outside. So you gotta bump that down a few degrees while you're at your parents' house if you can.
It's like when you go to those businesses and they have the little lockbox on it. That's basically what it is.
You're not allowed.
I don't pay the bills.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You gotta. I mean, while you're a guest, you gotta at least inquire.
Yeah. Oh well, I'll survive. So, actually, as we were during the break, Nebraska added another official visitor for the weekend. So let's start with that.
Really?
And we will we'll just dive into that little bit of breaking news. Jake Applegate will be attending Nebraska's official visit weekend. That is the Lincoln Southeast athlete, linebacker, safety, tight end, something.
Feels like linebacker, but athlete seems fair also.
Yeah, and so of course 6'4", 210 pounds. He got the offer on the opening day of June when he went and did an individual workout. So he is coming out for an official visit. Steve Wilpong put that out there, as well as announcing a crystal ball for Applegate, which doesn't feel like much of a stretch at this point. I think we could see that by the end of the weekend. I am now checking to see had I put in a crystal ball yet. I had intended to, and I had not done so.
Better get on that.
Should go and do that. I've done really poor this year with getting crystal ball predictions, and I just have not. I have not been on the ball, I guess, if you will. So, but this could be another strong weekend with Nebraska. You have Jake Applegate, who we have both seen play, and you've seen several times. We talked with Mike Sauter about him. You saw him again at the Lincoln Jamboree on Tuesday, and this is a guy that just sort of fits the athletic mold that Nebraska seems to be looking at in terms of linebacker and tight end as well. And so you could end up at either position. It does seem very likely that Nebraska is going to be his location, and I would expect defense of the two sides of the ball. But at least in terms of high school, Lincoln Southeast offense basically could run through him, in some fashion.
Yeah, I would pretty much, expect that as much as they possibly can. They've had some weapons over the last couple of years, but like in Southeast, they're always going to try and get downhill and run the ball. So there will always be that element to it. But yeah, I would expect him to be very involved. He's super skilled. I mean, he's a good wide receiver. He honestly. That's the first thing that pops off the page. Maybe it's just because it's offense versus defense and you really got to hone in on it on defense, but offensively he's quite a threat. He's got good hands and he gets open. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what they end up doing with him.
Yeah, I want to back you on this, because the first time I watched Southeast last year, I mean, he popped as a receiver in that Lincoln East game, because when they needed a play, and specifically on your 3rd and 17s, like you just throw it up to him, he'd go get it. And that's more of where I was noticing him. But he's going to be recruited as an outside linebacker or a tight end for Nebraska. And it does feel like outside linebacker probably has the edge there. And it's interesting because it's not all that dissimilar from another guy in the class that, Applegate's not in there yet, but we're projecting that he will be. One guy that already is, and I saw today, Ernest Hausman, who, again, 6'3", 205 pounds, a little shorter than Applegate, but the same style. A guy that, stands out to you when he's on offense because he can go up and go get the ball. He plays wide receiver for Columbus High, and he's a linebacker as well. And he's actually transitioning to playing inside linebacker this year from outside linebacker. But I was at their 7-on-7. They had a passing league going on today, and it basically, like, they could have thrown a hitch like 2 times and then done a stop and go, and it had been open every time. I mean, there was a moment where it's like Columbus needed a score to go up with like 2 minutes to go, and he basically just like walked over to the coach and the quarterback. And he's like, "I got my guy," and they just threw the seam route to him, and he went up and caught it. He had a couple nice Moss style catches. Because, I mean, it's still high school football. You still have to adjust to where that ball is going to go. But it's a deal where, Nebraska likes him as a linebacker more so than on the offensive side of the ball. But we heard Alan True tell us this. 24/7 Sports was really impressed with him as a wide receiver, too. He's just a really good athlete. And he's very excited about his upcoming visit. Really looking forward to the day that he gets to kind of sit in with Barrett Ruud. And this is what, we probably should do a better job of explaining what goes on in these official visits. But usually there's a couple hour period where the family and the kid sits in the position room and they just go over film. They go over their high school film. They go over Nebraska film. They walk through what it is. Like, this is kind of what we're going to be talking about when you're sitting here in the film room. These are the sort of things I'm going to be pointing out when we're going over practice film or game film. This is what I'm going to be looking for. And he's really excited for that because he's transitioning, as I said, from outside linebacker to inside linebacker. There's still a lot to learn. He's very fired up about the fact that his position coach is also the leading tackler in program history, which is sort of an oddity in itself. But like, who better to learn from? And that's kind of the thing that he's most looking to get out of this weekend. In addition to, he wants to spend some time with some of these guys. Right now, the visit weekend includes those two in-state kids, James Mons III, who we've talked about several times, the defensive back out of Fort Pierce Westwood in Fort Pierce, Florida. He's a 3-star corner, and he's someone that has a connection to Nebraska. As his uncle, Wander Mons, was here in the 70s, a very good defensive back as well. And it does seem like Nebraska has a good foot in the door there. But, James Mons is also visiting Wisconsin. I think he's already gone on a couple trips here so far. He went to Indiana before. I know at one point in time he had talked about visiting Mississippi State. And so I think that Nebraska has a fair chance, because I already have a crystal ball in here for him. I know his relationship is really good with Travis Fisher and with Nebraska, but that's one of the guys they have visiting. And then they have a safety from Georgia, who is Nathan Vale from Kennesaw, Georgia, Harrison High School, 6'2", 195 pounds. I don't know much about him. I know Nebraska is one of the early school offers for him. We know Travis Fisher loves to go into Georgia and find defensive backs. They have several already on their roster. He visited Georgia Tech last week, Nebraska this week. Could be another kid that could be a pretty quick decision. Plays on some of those 7-on-7 teams that include some of the other guys Nebraska's chased in this class as well on the defensive side of the ball. So defense heavy official visit week. Names that aren't on there anymore. Austin Terry, who was a visitor from the state of Washington, was a tight end. His spot may have been taken with Chase Androff. I don't know that Nebraska is going to take more tight ends. I think that we have discussed this a couple times, but this could be a fairly small class, and that makes things pretty limited. And so, Austin Terry's no longer visiting, and then AJ Bianco will no longer be visiting. He was slated to come in this weekend as well. He basically has no spot either, as Richard Torres committed on Monday. So right now you have those 4 visitors. We'll see who else Nebraska adds to the list at this point in time. But it's going to be a defensive heavy, maybe a little bit quieter. And we're already seeing the effects of a smaller class and scarcity in the class numbers with some of these guys who are no longer coming in.
Yeah, I mean, for as much kind of consternation there already has been, and maybe there's been a little bit about the amount of commitments that you have, things are obviously starting to pick up a little bit, and there's not that many spots to go. I mean, if it's a normal class year where Nebraska's planning on taking 21, 22, 23 guys, they're only probably going to take 15, 16, 17 tops this year, and you're already at 4. So the spots are limited, like you said.
Yeah. And there's still, some key positions out there for them. I'll be very curious what happens at wide receiver opposite of Victor Jones. You have Landon Sampson and Grant Page, both who have already visited, both who basically have visited the other school of interest that they have. For Grant Page, that's Kansas State. For Landon Sampson, that's Ohio State. Landon doesn't have that offer yet, and so he might be waiting to see where Ohio State goes with it. But if Grant Page wants in, I could easily see Nebraska taking him. I don't know if that means that Landon Sampson would be completely out, but it does mean that, that's one less spot. And Grant Page is the kind of athlete that could play defensive back as well. but Nebraska probably doesn't have to take 3 wide receivers, and their numbers sort of bear that out a little bit. Offensive line has been a little quiet. Defensive line has been a little quiet. We'll see what those look like. You could have 2 to 3 guys on either side of the ball there. So I do think like that is a scenario where, Nebraska just kind of has to see what their numbers are going to be and go from there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to get tight. That's for sure. And it'll happen pretty fast. And then you have to do all the scholarship math and stuff like that at the end, which is just crazy. So there's just a lot up in the air at this point, and I think it's kind of that way for everybody. But at the same time, you're getting closer and closer, and you're starting by this point, Schaefer, and I think we're right on target here. By this point, you kind of know the targets, the possibilities of who's going to fill that class out, and now it's just about getting through the rest of it.
Right. And look, I mean, they had 6 visitors last weekend, and they're in decent spot with all of those 6 guys. They had 8 the weekend before, and now you're starting to see it. So you're at 4 here. I mean, it does kind of feel like, and then you go from there, and we'll see what happens with Gabe Burkle, the tight end out of Prairie High School in Cedar Rapids. As we just said, Austin Terry no longer visiting from Washington. We'll see what it looks like at the end. I mean, Nebraska may not necessarily, you could just kind of see this thing sliding down a little bit as they wait to see where some of these decisions come in. We know commitments have been relatively slow. That's kind of been a big thing nationally, but it certainly has been here locally too. But I think the month of July is really going to pick up in terms of recruiting, and I kind of project Nebraska will be around 6 or 7 commits by the end of this month, and then by July, I expect they're going to be in double digits at some point. So they're going to be right where they sort of always are, and it's just each class is a little bit different as to how they get there, but usually they're about 2/3 of the way done by the time they get to the start of fall camp, and I think that's still going to be the case here. And in no short part because you're probably looking at a class of maybe 16 to 20, somewhere in that range, and we'll see how it goes for them with that. So, all right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll finish up the show, and we'll dive into maybe a couple other comments that came out of Big Red Blitz. Also, a great time. Get some questions, and if you have any, whether it's in recruiting, whether it's what some of the coaches would have said today, whether it's anything else that's on your mind, hit us up, Starter Heyman text line 402-464-5685. Let us know your thoughts, your questions. We'll get to those next on the show.
You're listening to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Summertime is here and the temperature is rising. Beat the heat at the Pawnee Plunge Water Park in Columbus all summer long. Pawnee Plunge features a full day of fun for the whole family, including the Flow Rider, the only one in Nebraska, a large swimming pool, diving boards, a lazy river, climbing wall, and of course, massive water slides. It's a great place for parties or a great spot to lounge around all day long. Book your party by calling 402-562-4269. Come splash and play the Pawnee Plunge Way in Columbus from May 31st through August 8th.
Baseball's back, Lincoln, and that means Fireworks Fridays are too. Come out to Haymarket Park for Friday home games to celebrate the Lincoln Salt Dogs' 20th season with baseball, giveaways, and of course, post-game fireworks. We're glad to have you back in the stands. Watch us light up the sky for our celebration season. Get your tickets to the best night out in Lincoln at saltdogs.com.
At Madonna Therapy Plus, your health and safety is our first priority. Whether you're recovering from a minor sprain or a complex medical condition, our therapy experts can help relieve pain and increase mobility in an environment that adheres to enhanced safety guidelines. Therapy Plus is open in Omaha and Lincoln for comprehensive physical, speech, and occupational therapy, all with enhanced in-person safety plus new telehealth options. So don't let wellness wait. Learn more and schedule an appointment at therapyplus.madonna.org.
Did you know Myers Cork and Bottle offers complete beverage catering and bartending services for everything from tailgates to weddings? Learn more at myerswine.com or by calling the shop at 476-1518. And don't miss Thirsty Thursday with Kevin Meyer, Thursdays at 4:30 on The Drive.
Mike Schaefer here with 5-star child care provider Lee Beecher from Bubbles and Blocks. Let's start with what makes Bubbles and Blocks special.
We have 3 beautiful locations in Lincoln that provide the safety, security, and reliability you need while also bringing a family feel to each classroom at every location.
I also hear some congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Yes, we just won the Lincoln Choice Award for Best Daycare and Preschool for the 3rd year in a row.
What should people do if they want to join the Bubbles and Blocks family?
Call to set up a tour to enroll your child today, or you can visit bubblesandblocks.com to apply to join our team.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. And Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Now's the time to schedule your air conditioner check with Bryant. Make sure it's ready to keep you cool and comfortable when you need it most. Bryant Air Conditioning and Heating. Call 467-1111.
This Father's Day weekend, make plans to stop by the Testicle Festival at Round the Bend Steakhouse. They'll have 2 beer gardens with ice-cold beer, hot nuts, Rocky Mountain oysters, beef fries, bull testicles, and if you can't handle that, there's burgers, corn dogs, and nachos. Live DJ from 2 p.m. to midnight and live entertainment 4 p.m. to midnight. $10 cover charge, but free for military personnel. It's the Midwest's best field party, the Testicle Festival at Round the Bend Steakhouse, starting at 11 a.m. on Saturday, June 19th. You can't cancel D's nuts.
Summer is an excellent time to keep the learning going with your child. I'm Jenny Benson, president of the Nebraska State Education Association. Sure, summer break is full of fun for kids, but it's also important to set aside time for them to read each day. It's also a great time to focus on specific skills. It's time well spent that will pay off when school starts back this fall. Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Back to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Presented by Bubbles and Blocks. On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Hour. Mike Schaefer, Connor Happer, as we are finishing up the show here on a Wednesday afternoon. Tomorrow, we are going to be joined by fan favorite, studio favorite, Twitter favorite, fast food favorite, gambling favorite, dice game at random dive bars in Nashville favorite, Alan Bell. So we will we'll dive into what the thought process is for Tennessee fans who will be flocking back to Omaha for the first time since, I think, 2005.
And Vandy fans.
And Vandy fans. But, you know, if you know Alan, he aligns himself more with Tennessee, certainly, than with Vandy. And I think that's in no short part because Tennessee has far more characters than the Vandy fan base could ever hope to have.
Yeah, no, I mean, Vandy doesn't really have fans, to be fair. I mean, they have
well,
a whistler.
They do for baseball. They definitely do for baseball.
Yeah, I don't know.
But in terms of just an overall fan footprint, it is just a giant blob of orange. And then there's probably more Memphis blue than there is Commodore. So, what color is Vanderbilt?
I'd say black.
Drab? Yeah, I don't even know. Olive? They randomly wear olive uniforms.
Yeah, they do sometimes wear like weird green uniforms. I don't know. Yeah, I think Tennessee. It is possible that they could be like the fan favorite throughout next week, but I don't know.
I could see where if you were Nebraska fans and you were just happened to be at the CWS, you could embrace the fact that Nebraska and Tennessee are generally parallels in a lot of ways, at least as far as it relates to football. But I don't know that there's like I don't look at that list. We talked about this the other day. I don't look at that list and just see the team that it's going to be Omaha's team. It's just a lot of just sort of ones that you're used to, you know, ones that you expect and sort of ones you shrug at. Yeah. That's kind of what the list looks like.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So
there's just not much
we'll see. Maybe there's a player or two that can win Omaha over to their side. We'll see if that plays out in that way. We do have a question here on the stream. Ashton Hayes or Justin Williams or both? Ashton Hayes, of course, the running back out of Reno, Nevada, was here this past weekend. Justin Williams, the running back out of Dallas, Georgia, was here the weekend before. I don't know that Nebraska takes both. I think they're just taking one running back in this class. I would venture to say Justin Williams is ahead of Ashton Hayes, but at the same time, it's worth acknowledging Justin Williams is going to be a tough pull. I mean, he was talking to our West Virginia guy and basically said that he loved his visit there and was really impressed by his experience in Morgantown, and he's excited about the Louisville one coming up, and he basically said he's going to have to sit down with his family and make a decision about his potential timeline. So, we had him on this show not too long ago, and he seemed pretty adamant that he wanted to get to November, but you get into these visits, you get those coaches in your ear, then you get the recruits in your ear, and, he could have a decision coming. And I don't know. That one's too tough for me to tell. I think Nebraska has a great relationship with him, but I also think he has a great relationship with all the schools he's really considering. Ashton Hayes is one that I kind of had circled as like this could be a guy I see a good fit with Nebraska. He's a quick running back. I wouldn't say that he's the fastest guy on the field, but he's someone that he's quicker. He can provide a little power. Feels like he can sort of do everything from the running back position. And he's someone that came in this last weekend. We'll see who else he's looking at. Cal, I think, is another school in the mix there. We'll see if, Nebraska, Cal, if there's another team that comes in as far as it relates to Ashton Hayes. But he could make a quick decision, and that could just force the hand one way or the other. But I don't see Nebraska taking both at this time. I think that running back room still feels pretty full, even with the departure of Ronald Tompkins.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that one. And then we got a couple here from the text line. This is one's from Ellis. He says, it seems like we had so many guys transfer out. So why is our recruiting class going to be so small?
Well, I think because they don't know exactly what the numbers are going to look like at this time. They don't know how many of those juniors that theoretically should be seniors are going to come back. So I think they're going to err on the side of caution. And I do think that Nebraska, maybe more than I anticipated, and this is based on just some recent conversations, will get more involved in the transfer portal as we move forward. And so I think that at least in terms of this 2022 class, and if you frame it in the sense that this is a class that's going to be the most difficult for them because they've had the least amount of time to really recruit it in person and to build those relationships, that maybe if you take a smaller 2022 prep group and you put a little more emphasis on the transfer portal and you leave some spots for that and you bring in, say, 20 kids and you have a couple juniors that come back and that becomes your 25 that keeps you at the 85 number, I could see it playing out that way because I don't think that it's going to be small classes necessarily moving forward, but it could just be where you don't have those relationships in 2022. And rather than beat your head against the wall or take some risks or, flyers, you can do that in the transfer portal. And that might be the way Nebraska wants to go. And I'm not saying all the time, but it could be something that they consider from a strategy standpoint because of the relationships at the moment.
Got about 25 seconds left here. Is Ernest's middle name taking it to the
Hausman?
Ernest taking it to the Hausman? I kind of like it.
Yeah. That could be a good middle name.
That would be his Chris Berman middle name.
Yeah, I'll float it by him. We'll see what Ernest has to say, but he's going to score some touchdowns this year in Class A. We will be back with Alan Bell tomorrow. The Drive is up next, and I will not be at my parents' house.